This was fishing, but every time it falls upon my own feet, it's watching.
Yes.
I expect that from my horse.
We had grapefruit. All right. Except for cricket.
Except for the cowgirl up here. She keeps me from backing this chair off and falling.
She saved his life a few times, so
She
you
did.
have to remember,
Agreed.
he should be really loyal.
I am.
I was watching him and he kept getting closer and closer, and finally I grabbed him.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Hello. How are you?
Hey, Jeremy. Good, buddy.
It's like the whole crew's here.
Marcy's calling in at noon.
Put this on quiet.
I did too.
There she is.
There's an error in your front page article.
Hi, Jeremy.
You listed the forms of government available incorrectly.
Hi, Ruth, can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Half a dozen times already.
Yeah, you can hear me, so.
Still wrong. It's
You got
still
my
incorrect.
note that you might need
And
to
it's been,
move
then you're saying it's been wrong a half a dozen times.
Well, it's
We
the first
finally
time
got
I read
it.
it carefully enough to catch it, I guess.
Okay, these guys might need to do my.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yes, we will.
Oh,
Can Marcy hear us?
Yes, she, can you hear Judy?
Hi, Marcy.
Kinda.
How are you?
Oh,
Talk loud. That's first for me in my whole life, you know.
All right. Yes, we are, Marcy. All right, the time is...
wait,
Oh.
sorry. I'm sorry.
You're fine. All right, the time is 12:01, Friday, May 17, 2019, and I'd like to call to order the Grand County Change in Form of Government Study Committee. We have all members here in person with the exception of Marcy Till, who is with us over the phone. We'd like to start things off by having the pledge. Mr. Day, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Day. First and foremost, we're going to, everyone's had a copy of the minutes from last week delivered to us. Does anyone note any misprints, incorrections, anything on the minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt the minutes from last time?
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
The minutes from May 10th, 2019.
Yes, sir.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Cricket seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark? Passes unanimous. I'd like now to move to general reports. Item B, important election timeline information. Chris Baird, County Clerk Auditor.
How's everyone doing?
oh, hello.
Well,
Good, how are you, Chris?
So I'm doing well. I guess there's been some discussion about the election timeline as well, the lead up to the election timeline. And I think I'm just going to let Christina Sloan take the lead up question, and I think she's already established that timeline with all of you. As far as the election goes, it's my interpretation that the question of the optional plan has to be run during either municipal or a regular general election. And I don't think that we have the option for running an action plan under a special election, although technically speaking, if we ran a countywide election during a municipal cycle, it would be a special election for us. However, in my opinion, I think that 1752A, 5C series does give us the option of running during a municipal general election. It says so specifically. So I think if there is a conflict between that and the standard election code, which you can find in 20A, the specific code always prevails over the more general. And so I would say that 1752A 501 is more specific than the typical normal general election codes in 20A. So my interpretation is that you could run the optional plan elections here if you had time to do it, given all the other procedures and processes that Christina Sloan has laid out for you this year. I think that you come to the conclusion that sometime in July would be your deadline for that, which is pretty onerous. If that didn't work out, then obviously we would move the question to the regular general election next year. And if it passed, then the election of officers, as far as I can tell, spelled out in both 1752A and the standard election codes found in 20A, that you would have to elect the officers in a regular general election. It would happen until, the next one would happen until 2022, and then they would take office in 2023. The question of the 4 council seats that are coming up for election next year has been relayed to the lieutenant governor's office, but I haven't heard back from them yet. And when I do, I'll let you know. There is a component of 1752A found somewhere, I believe, in 500 civic that gives the study committee the ability to establish a transition plan that includes appointments, interim appointments. It doesn't say interim appointments of what exactly. And so I'm not sure if they're talking about staff or elected officials. That's unclear to me. But I did relay that question specifically to the lieutenant governor's office. And so they may or may not give us a response. It's not unusual for them to come back and say, local elections are not our job. We do statewide elections. Ask your county attorney. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was their response. So we might have more to figure out as far as the transition plan goes. But I do think that the most likely scenario is that we're probably going to have to run the optional plan question on next year's general election. Unless you guys can really work extremely bad. But the ability to run a special election anyway, under normal operating procedures, it can only happen in June or November. There's no capacity other than those 2 months to run a special election anyway. So I don't think that would work out, even if it was allowed. I don't think it is. Any questions on that?
Mr. Greenberg?
Just maybe there's a question for the county attorney, but since, as you say, technically this fall's election will be a municipal general election, but it would have to be technically a special election for the county. Is that? Have you thought about whether or not it's more of a special election to have it in June than it would be in November?
Well, the problem is that 1752A 501 doesn't give us the ability to run a special election. It gives us the ability, however, to run a question during the municipal general election. That's all it says. It says nothing about special election.
Okay.
And so the only mention of a special election in 1752A has to do with the question pertaining to the study committee. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's the only reference for special elections, and that we're past that already.
Thank you.
But there is, I have to say, there's some. Christina Sloan and I are working out some minor interpretations. We have some disagreement about how things would progress if we were to run the election this year may be a moot point, and she's looking into my interpretation versus hers. We haven't resolved that yet, but it would only really pertain to the process if we were going to run the question this year on the optional plan. All right.
Mr. Debney?
I wasn't here at the last meeting, obviously, but just to be sure I understand, the drop dead date for getting on the ballot for 19 is that July the 8th?
I would
Yes.
refer to Christina Stone on that question.
That
Is
was
it-
the date she provided.
That's what she said? Okay. Thank you.
It's a pretty cushy date, though. I mean, it could be pushed back 2 weeks. How do you feel about that, Chris? If we went with the, what was it, the 22nd was my alternative to that. I mean, there's a 2-week window, I think, that we could make it still happen.
Again, I would refer you to Christina Stone for that.
I mean, that's assuming Christina needs all 45 days to review.
Yeah, I think that the timeline, as far as I can tell, is if you used up all the time available in every single one of those windows of time and periods of and deadlines, and obviously those could be accomplished in a shorter period of time. But if you were to extend them out to the maximum, then I think Christina's timeline is fairly accurate. And I haven't looked into it quite frankly enough to say whether or not there's another 2 weeks. I'm not sure.
How do you feel about your office? I mean, I mean, basically brass tacks. Like, I mean, where are you at on it?
So I met with the city a day or two ago to discuss the possibility of having to run a countywide election this year, and it turns out that they want me to run their election regardless.
So this would
Another
just.
thing that I just found out
So-
recently, I'm going to be running an election this year.
So you're already doing one, so what the heck? Let's put another one.
So it's no skin off my back
Alright.
if you do run it.
Okay.
I'm going to be running an election anyway, and so we're gearing up for that. So it's not an issue for me.
Basically, it comes down to what time crunch we need to allot for ourselves.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so, the big issue for me really is that overseas ballots have to be mailed out 45 days prior to the election date, and so getting enough time to actually create the ballots is always a bit of a time crunch. The typical deadline for ballot initiatives is 65 days before the election, which only really gives about 2 weeks for me to draft the ballot, proof the law, get them approved. So it's the sooner the better.
Okay.
Obviously, if I know I'm going to run a countywide election, the sooner that I know that, the easier it is for me to generate those ballots and all the permutations that could exist. It won't be overly complicated, but still, I think it's going to happen.
No, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Beard.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other discussions on this matter, folks? No? If not, we'll move to item C.
Just real quickly.
Yes.
Are we gonna, when are we gonna discuss this kind of?
Okay.
Today.
K.
Okay, K.
Seeing no other discussion matters, we'll move to item C, availability of additional potential trainers and target dates for informational sessions for committee members and the public on 4 forms of government and on House Bill 224, 2018, continued from March 15th, 2019. Mr. Day?
You know, we talked about basically getting the survey out, everything that we need to do that way is to the public. I would make a recommendation that we set a hard date today for what we want to do to inform the public. We need to have an open house. I would think we can push that for June, and I think the middle of June would be fine for an open house. It gives us plenty of time to run it through the papers, get the ads out, get everything that we need to do. And then we have that open forum where people can pick up surveys, turn in surveys, do all that type of stuff. And
Point of information, this is not the agenda item.
oh, what are we talking? Okay, ability of additional potential trainers.
So
Yeah.
I think
I
that was
mean,
the information.
So okay, so what we're talking about there is the people coming down and training us. I mean,
I gave up on the Office of Legislative Counsel
Yeah,
and
legislative
Research.
counsel I mean, I'll say it right now, getting the lieutenant governor's office to come down is going to be an act of God, or just a good vacation trip plan. I don't know which one at this point. I mean, Spencer's getting ready to run that campaign pretty soon, so I mean, he might come down. But the reality of it is, that
Rickett will take them up Hell's Ravine.
yeah, I mean, the reality of it is that they're as far as training goes, I mean, I think we've had substantial efforts to train us. We're understanding of what our duties and requirements are. I mean, I don't feel. Basically, the way I feel about the extra training is that we've gotten, and Mr. Anderson came down. That was an amazing training. I don't believe that we need any more training as far as what our duties and our abilities are for us
Plus
or
we've-
for the public.
Plus,
Cricket?
we've had all the information from Tooele that we
Yeah.
could look, that
Tooele's-
said, do this, is pretty much is what we were already in the process
Yeah.
of, so
And
I
so,
think we've covered twice there.
And to recap, we've reached out to the Lieutenant Governor's office. We reached out to the attorney or the
Office of Legislative Research and Counsel,
for
Counsel and Research.
and both of those ended up. We reached out to them. We've attempted to engage in their services to give us training, and those haven't gone forward. So
I feel like they just giggle when we call.
So do we feel at this point that we've had sufficient information from Mr. Anderson that came down?
God knows I'm very well trained.
That's what my wife says too about me.
So we don't need to continue this matter further on
No.
a subsequent agenda. Any other discussion on this matter, folks? Okay, we'll move to report item D, general reports. Report on additional fee information for engaging outside counsel continued from April 12th, 2019.
So this is another one that's really interesting because I'm still waiting for the law offices of Snow to get back to me. But I did finally get the law office of Crichton and McConkey to give me after several conversations and I mean, Sean Gunnarson's he worked for Senator Bennett. He was his attorney for drafting bills and everything like that. And he pretty much just told us, yeah, for $10,000 I can't do it, is what he came back and said. It'd be a lot more money than that. So as of right now, Snell and Wilmer coming in at about between $8,000 and $9,000 is a really good deal if we decide to go after outside counsel, which, I mean, we'll talk about later on my personal opinion on that. But the reality of it is a lot of law firms won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, and I think the main reason that Mr. Gunnarsson said that is because he's not familiar with HB 224, so he would have to do a lot of legwork to get caught up, and that was his reasoning of coming in way above 10,000. Whereas the law offices of Snell and Wilmer are already caught up, they know the bill inside and out, and so they're able to come in at a lower bid for that. So that's the reason their bid is so much lower.
So can I ask you for a recap? So we've reached out to
Snell and Wilmer, and we've gotten a response from them.
and their guesstimated price was
Between 8,000 and 9,000.
I said 11, I thought.
Well, 11 would be if there was litigation or anything like that. They were talking about that would be really high ball.
That's
Okay.
not what they said.
Keep in mind what I got told.
just a
was-
rough guesstimate.
Yeah,
If we could just run through each of them to know.
Rough guesstimate. Let's just say between 8,000 and 11,000 is
Okay.
where Snell and Wilmer was. I'm thinking. I mean, last time they quoted me and I used their offices, they came below their bid.
Sure.
They're pretty efficient, effective. They want to do business with Grand County.
And McConkey said said
McConaughey,
thanks.
this is the letter we got here from Sean Gunnarsson, who's
Yep.
from Crichton and McConkey, and it was pretty much like, thank you, but no, it'd be too much money to get caught up.
And did Bob, you
Yes,
reached
and
out
I
to...
had the assignment to speak to Steve Russell, which I did. Had actually a fairly long conversation with him. His concern was our timeline. If we're talking about providing our attorney with a product in October, he's able to schedule it. His concern was exactly what product we would give him. And I told him it would be like a deal sheet on the way to some other contract, except it's a deal sheet specifying what we want in the plan. And he said, well, can't Steve do it? I said, no, it'd be a conflict for him. But I said, Steve certainly will help us make sure that what we give you, if we do, is clear enough for you to work from. He said that he would bill us at $150 an hour. I told him that our previous information from law firms had been in the $8,000 to $11,000 range. He said, "Oh, it won't be anywhere nearly that amount," is what he said. And I said, "Well, can you give me a not-to-exceed figure?" He said, "No, not until you really show me what you got, but it won't be anything like $8,000.
Do we have any other firms we reached out to, Snow or anybody
I
else?
haven't heard back from Snow yet.
Oh, okay.
No. It took me only 3 weeks to hear back from Crichton and McConkey.
It really
Judy?
depends on what our date is. I mean, we're looking at whatever we do, whether we're having to do a crash document or whether we're gonna. But I frankly think going out to 2022 to set this in motion is a nightmare. That I'm getting up in age. I'm not sure I'll make it that far.
Ruth, question?
Mr. Greenberg?
The county policy for bids of this size, does it require 3 actual bids? Does the "sorry, I won't do it" count as a bid?
So when we get to that action item, I was going to bring this up, but I'll bring it up now. I did just check with Christina Sloan this morning, as well as Chris Baird. It was all of us in the same conversation. So the purchasing policy is the county's. The study committee, the most conservative approach would be to use the county's purchasing policy, which I can talk about. But you all are the study committee kind of outside of the county, even though you have the Grand County name, Grand County Change in Form of Government. And so there was a little debate about it. Pardon?
And we're spending county money.
I mentioned that, and it's in the county council's budget. So Christina thought the most conservative approach to adopt would be to use the county's purchasing policy. A less conservative approach, which could fly, would be to not. The difference is the county's purchasing policy, anything over $10,000 requires a sealed bid process, which you've been through. It's a 30-day thing to get it out, get it in the mail. It's got to run 30 days, and then we get sealed bids in, and then there's a selection committee here of staff to make a recommendation. It could be you guys, could be the selection committee or a subcommittee of you. And then you would vote at your next meeting if you wanted to do that. If it's under 10,000, then all we need are 3 phone bids. If it's between 2 and 10, 3 phone bids, or email bids or whatever. Which we have
So my
one.
question is I'm not interested, a phone bid.
What's that?
Is-
I'm not interested. Is that a phone bid?
Yeah.
Not really, but
Okay.
if if we couldn't find anybody else, then sure. If what you're looking for is so specific that no one can do this. And in a way, it is specific because it's who is familiar with House Bill 224. I mean, I think and again, you don't necessarily have to fall under the county council's.
We
the
do have to follow
county's
state-
purchasing policy.
State law, though, which would require, if we really don't make some attempt to get bids, would require us declaring this to be a sole source provider situation, which is us saying that there's really only one person who can do it, and that's clearly not true.
Mr. Day?
Ruth, what was the firm that the county used in the last litigation?
Oh,
What was that firm? Because that's
Oh,
another.
Parr Brown.
Parr Brown. That's another one. I haven't reached out to Parr Brown.
Mhm.
And they would know that.
Yes, they would. They would know the law. And they could give us a very competitive to what Snell and Wilmer did.
So to move forward on this, could we assign to Mr. Greenberg to reach out to Mr. Russell to see if he would give us an official bid?
Well, I think that's a phone bid.
It's a
I mean,
phone
that's
bid.
what
Is
we
it
got.
sufficient?
Keeping it.
Well, we have 150 an hour. We just don't know how many hours. So it's lacking. It's a little bit of information, but
Could you
it
see
is
if
something.
he could give a little bit more information so we know?
We talked about this for a long time. This is his bid.
Well, so if he said it'd be way under 10,000, have him say 10,000. I mean,
And Mr. Day, could you reach out to?
Yeah, I'll reach
Parr
out
Brown?
to Parr Brown this week and see what we can get out from them. I have a feeling they'll be pretty quick to respond. I hope.
So we'll just,
They've done business with the county for years, so.
okay. That should give us a little bit more insight.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this matter? No? Let's move to item E, report on KZMU interview, May 13th, 2019. Mr. Mr. Dabney, Mr. Day?
I was not able to go, so I'm going to turn over the wall. I had a tourism nightmare. That's all I can say.
Tourism
Just so much fun sometimes.
I just drove by Arches. They're having a tourism nightmare right now.
Last week or two.
Mr. Dabney?
I don't know whether any of you listened to it or not. I was there, and Marcy, when we found out that Jeremy couldn't make it, Marcy came rolling in, so the two of us had a good discussion with Howard Trenholm, and he asked good, relevant questions to this, and between the two of us, we tried to answer it. Did any of you listen? You did, Steve?
Yeah, I think it came across clear.
I wasn't listening as much as Marcy and I were talking, so you would be better to say how it came across. Because
I think it hit the points that we wanted to make. I think half of the battle of this whole thing is getting out to KZMU, to the sources, and to allow people to hear about information. But you guys were knowledgeable and on point. So
okay. So I think that was worth doing. And
Marcy, can you hear me, Marcy?
Yep.
How did you think the KZMU interview went?
I thought it was fine. I think we did mention the concept of a special election, so maybe we've already put false information out there. No, I thought Howard had some good questions. I actually read from the state statute our, what our start was. Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Mr. Dabney?
Actually, Marcy, I said specifically to them that there's two elements of this that have to be in a general election. One is voting on the proposal, and the second is the election of the council or commission members afterwards have to be in a general election. So I don't think we misled them.
Okay. I did decide that I don't really want to talk with people too in depth about, what the committee's doing without my notes right handy so that I can reference actual facts.
Understood.
So careful of you, my goodness.
Very wise advice. Any other discussion on the KZMU interview item? Seeing none. Marcy, the next item is item F, suggestions for public service announcements. It's listed for you to take care of this one. Do you want to run us through that?
Can we postpone this until we're towards the end of the meeting where we kind of know where we're headed?
Perfect. So we'll move to table the matter, and we'll come back to item F. Suggestions, item G, suggestions for next newspaper editorial regarding the public engagement process. I'd also like to table this matter until we know near the end what our next strategy is going before I make an exciting new letter to the editor. Item H, further discussion on use of Facebook and or social media. Mr. Day?
Okay, so Matt Siniceros educated me, which was a fun adventure with how public record works, because guess what? Facebook is public record. There is no way to restrict comments on it. If we decide to do a Facebook page, which I think is great still, and it's something we can make happen really quick. We could have everybody in this room be, everybody on the study committee could be administrators on it, if we so choose. And we could have Matt Siniceros as an administrator, which he highly recommended. But keep in mind that any information or anything that is posted on that Facebook page becomes public record. So it's going to need to be tracked. So Matt was very clear in whatever we do, it needs, so it becomes public record, flat out. And in this day and age, that's just par for the course in the future of government and everything. It's amazing how social media is all part of that. Matt did caution us, if we do decide to do that, we cannot delete posts, we cannot do anything like that, so it all becomes public record. One thing he did encourage us to do is not to tie it to any of our personal accounts or anything like that. Create a separate record and do that. So it is something we can do. It is something that we can do easily. It is something that I would not feel comfortable doing without the blessing of the study committee and everybody saying aye, yay, or nay. But it is possible to do. It could potentially reach out to a lot of people who not necessarily are of the demographic that's going to pick up the newspapers or, that type of thing. It's, as crazy as it is, a lot of people get news sources from Facebook. It is what it is. So, is this something we want to do? Is this something we need to do? I think it needs to be a discussion item and potentially a voting item on our next meeting to pull the trigger on that. It's something that we can do in a half an hour. We could set it up and have it good to go, and we could run it. If it's something we decide, you know what, that's a slippery slope, we'll just make all the information readily available, and different auxiliaries can share that on Facebook as they feel. That's fine too. It just depends on if we want to have that or not.
Mr. Greenberg?
I'm a little confused. I understand that anything that we post is public record, but I'm confused at.
So
can I finish?
No, go ahead.
I'm confused at why we would have to allow other people to post to our page. As long as we provide an avenue to comment, which is our study committee email, doesn't that satisfy any requirements?
So what Matt said is being able to block comments. I've never seen where you can automatically set up your page where you can't have any comments whatsoever. So comments is kind of a natural thing within the Facebook page. So for us to block, once somebody makes a comment, this is what Matt said, it's much like we have.
Once they make it, I understand.
Once they make it, yeah. And that's what he said, you can't delete those or block those once they make them. So there's that's what Matt cautioned me, kind of educated me on the legalities of that. So
you can purchase Facebook ads, which are one-way communication.
Yes.
And maybe that's what we ought to be doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Don't you have to have a page in order to pay to post an ad? I think you have to have a page in order to post an ad. I mean, how would you be able to put an ad on there if you don't have? I mean, I don't know. The reason
we could look into it and see if we.
The reason I say that is
page.
Because of my Cricket Green Land and Water. I get stuff all the time. Promote your page. Promote your page. I get that on Moab Cowboy. Promote your page. Get that on Instagram. I don't get that on my personal page. So I think you got to have an account in order to be able to do an ad. I mean, I don't know, but I would bet that would be a yes.
Doesn't the county have a page?
Well, we don't have
a county general website page, but different departments have pages.
Yeah.
And Flats has a page, etc.
Yes, they have planning has one because they post one. And meetings are. That would be the beneficial point of it, is being able to just is maybe we don't do anything but share what, like our little deal that we've approved, share meeting times and places and nothing else. You know what I mean? We create a page, don't have any don't put anything out there, just say, be aware, we're meeting next Tuesday at whatever, and we're voting,
and if I may real quick, I think one of the other things that happens is once you post a page, say people started to, we got engagement, but the type of engagement that we got was discourse that wasn't civil. And that's the problem where we have somebody comes out and says, we really hate the, whoever's. And then the somebody's versus the whoever's, and then they start bickering, and then we can't do anything. And we just kind of have to sit there and go, hey guys, well, it'd be really great if you talked about the study committee. And I think that's the problem. Mm-hmm. I think essentially what you could do is create a skeleton page that says, study committee, and then seek advertisement instead of posting things to engage. I mean, that's the downside of engaging in that type of media. And I don't know if it's worth the headache and we get the benefit from it that we anticipate. And that's where I see if it's going to be a long process where we have to go back and forth, I think we can use our time on other things. Mr. Greenberg.
This might be a worthwhile subject to bring up at the open meetings training for those who are going to be able to attend it next week.
That might be.
Who is attending next week, if I could ask? Oh, goody. Thank you. Good to know. Have you guys given your RSVP to Bryony so that she's counting you in the
Well, I did it to Brian. I did it twice.
Can't eat pizza.
Bring us out. Okay.
I'll bring a salad.
Bring a peach.
I know. Bring a protein bar.
So at this point, The question is, do we want to go down the rabbit hole and putting it back on for discussion? Do we want to pay for advertising on it? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my position, is to see whether it's going to really merit the amount of time that we're putting in. Cricket?
Can I just
Yep.
interrupt?
Marcy?
Are you there?
Yep, we can hear you.
If we just made the Facebook page purely information driven with, facts, what we have proved and what the statute says, and, reference our email address, I still think it serves as a means to communicate with a population that we may not reach otherwise.
I agree with that, but I also, maybe, we ask the planning and zoning how theirs is going, because they've had some hot button things, and if they didn't see a mass, I mean, if they seen it was more beneficial than hurtful, maybe that could, because they've posted about like the increased density and things like that. We could probably try to get a feel for how that was handling.
Do you want to reach out to them?
Yes, I'll ask them.
So,
and then make a decision next week.
do we want to put this on the agenda for next week for possible action and kind of follow up? Mr. Day, do you have experience doing advertising on Facebook?
Lots.
Can you see if it's possible to just make a skeleton page and then just purchase advertising?
I know that if we make a skeleton page, we can. Yes. I can confirm that. To not have a page and be able to do advertising, I'm unsure on, but I'll look into that too.
Marcy, do you have any other comments on this one? What we're going to do is we're going to set it, if making sure you heard, we're going to set it out for more discussion next meeting.
I just think that as we move through the rest of this agenda, depending on what we decide to do, one thing hinges on another. We can't use that platform for information if we don't, it's not up and running before we're actually doing what we're doing.
Fair point.
I think
Cricket?
maybe the only reason I would maybe postpone is to get a feel for planning and zoning, and also learn something in our open meetings class that we're taking next week. We might find out this is a snake we don't want to touch. So I think at least wait till after some advice from them who are training us. That's my opinion.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair, just want to bring out that the items of Facebook and/or other social media. I'm just curious if the committee wants to speak about any other types of
Anybody reach
social
out
media.
to Instagram, Twitter, MySpace?
I think Twitter's a war. Let's don't go there.
Twitter's a what?
A war. Let's don't go there.
Nothing else? Mr. Day?
I mean, Instagram it's just not it's really not an avenue that would be effective, really. I mean, it's more of a pictures and fluff, and I mean, as much as Facebook is too, but Facebook, at least you can get more informational out there, whereas Instagram's just, it's really awesome for
If we had a
recipes.
study committee puppy,
Right, puppy or recipes,
A dinosaur.
Your study committee recipes brought to you by Judy Carmichael.
There you go.
Oh, God. A lot of people have died of my food.
Okay, so essentially there's seemingly no other areas that we've reached out. Okay, seeing none, no other discussion, we'll move on to item I, setting dates for the public open houses.
that needs to go after K also, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Do we want to table that?
What I want to say about this is that Marcy and I have been talking about this, and we thought probably we needed to do something sooner rather than later, because people are asking, what are we doing? We can't keep people engaged if we don't have any public forum. We talked about having a public meeting at the Grand Center, maybe one here at the courthouse, one out at Water Conservancy, and one in Castle Valley.
Yeah.
And what we were thinking is that maybe we could just do a rush week and do a bunch of them, and as many of us, a quorum could show up. We would be able to just get started with this, so we would know what direction the public wants us to go.
And could we kind of look at that idea right after we review the timeline?
Works for me.
Perfect.
Work for you, Marcy?
We're just going to table it momentarily and come back in a couple letters. Moving to item J, report on compiled list of organizations who have been sent the flyer. Ruth?
So I sent it to you all. And then in comes the idea to start setting the open house dates. And so the flyer at the very bottom says, watch for open houses. So I thought, well, with one more day, knowing that you all were meeting right away, I did not send it out to the county employees, and I hadn't heard from any of you all. So I thought it might be better to actually have those open dates on there before we get it out. So no one has seen it except you all.
And similarly on that idea, I have not heard back from Mallory yet from the school district. So I need to get her list as well. So no other discussion on item J. We'll move to the next portion, citizens to be heard. Is there anyone that would like to let their voice be heard today? Will you come up to the mic so everybody can hear you and it can be recorded? And if you would, please state your name when you come up.
I'm Marlene Dalton, and this is our first time to come to the meeting, but I was just wondering if you have come to any ideas yourself of which of those 4 options you want, or have you eliminated it?
And I think at this point we're just kind of in the informational stage. We haven't, I'm speaking for myself. I'd like to hear the information about all the different types before I make a decision on what I want to do.
So you'll be doing that with the open houses or after the open houses?
To keep an open mind until we come to a decision as a body.
And I couldn't hear what Chris was saying about having it on the ballots and stuff. Was there a certain deadline that you have to have it this year? Okay.
How it works is we have obligations to make sure that a couple different agencies get their time, sufficient time with our proposal. For example, the county attorney has to have 45 days to review the proposal, and we have to be so many days prior to the actual election, which puts a kind of a time crunch on us to make our proposal, to draft it by June. So.
Thanks, that's all I needed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move to presentations, which we have none, unless anybody wants to correct me. Otherwise, we'll move to general business item, action item, discussion and consideration of approving proposed adjusted timeline for bringing study committee responsibilities to fruition, postponed from May 10th, 2019. Mr. Day, Mr. Greenberg.
You have a written report in your packet.
By the way, excuse me, I do have 2 packets here if anyone wants a hard copy. Thank you.
It's after the minutes. It's the first thing.
It says on the top, item K.
Report to the study committee on timing issues. The first item is just, is it possible to take the form of government recommendation to voters this November? And it just actually reiterates what Chris told us earlier, which is while there's some technical question about this coming municipal election, the county clerk is confident that we can do so. And he is the county's election official. So if he says yes, it's yes, unless there's litigation, of course. It also appears that we would have to finish our work by July 8th. It's possible, again, as just was discussed a few minutes ago, that could be pushed back a couple of weeks. Not for sure, but it could be. That allows 8 possible meeting dates, assuming we don't want to meet July 5th on the July 4th weekend, if we met every week. Between now and the deadline. C is just what Judy started to talk about. In order to have several public input meetings, would require that we have them in very early June, and that we drafted the plan and transition plan in the first really 2 weeks of July. So that's kind of the scenario if we elect to push ahead. Item number 2 is, so what if it's not on this November's ballot? What if we decide either we can't or we don't think it's smart to meet that timeline? Since the question is required to be put to the voters at a general election, that would place it on the 2020 ballot. When we get into this, we can talk about the pros and cons of each, but that allows us some flexibility in scheduling. We could have the public input meetings so that we could straddle the summer vacation period, which is always a problem. We could then take September and part of October to actually agree on a plan, and then it could be submitted to outside counsel by November 1st, and assuming there's a 30-day window for drafting, and then we'd have to look at it again, then it would go to the county council by the before Christmas, essentially. This would likely place the election of officers on the 2022 ballot and require that the transition plan address the issue of what happens between. So then B, study committee meetings and public input workshops need to be scheduled to meet either timeline. And that's the report. We've kind of got a fork in the road, and I think we better decide which fork we're taking today, because if we don't, then we've in effect decided not to go for this November.
Walt? Mr. Devlin?
My concern is, and I'd love to get this done, but my concern is that the citizens of this county need to feel that this isn't a jam job, that we're not rushing this to the point that they don't get to participate the way they would. There's still concern about how this all came about, and that's old history. I understand that, but I think we need to make sure that we are laying it out and giving people that want to speak time to do that. And if we can do that all 4 open houses in 1 week, that'll be pretty amazing. But that if we can do that may. My greatest concern is making sure the public gets to say what they want to say, and to the extent there's a perception that they didn't, and that we just made a decision, that won't be as good a scenario, I don't think.
Judy?
My idea on doing the open houses, taking a week and putting 2 or 3 of them into 1 week in these areas, whether we go with the 20 or the 19 really doesn't make any difference. I think the public wants to know now what we're doing.
Yeah.
And no matter which date, we need to do something this summer so that people have an idea, rather than waiting till October and November to have some kind of a public forum so that we have an idea where the public's wanting us to go. I really don't have any idea out of the 4 forms which direction the public wants to go. I know what we've done with the surveys where those people want to go, but I really don't care. I'm really wanting to know what the public wants us to do with this, and I don't want them blindsided, and I think they need to be in on this sooner rather than later. So I'd like to do something public just simply because they need to be in the mix.
Walt?
But when you say this summer, looking at that July 8th, this summer is June. I mean, this has all got to be done the next 2 weeks and then the 4 weeks of June.
Are we under an obligation to have to advertise them for any length of time for a public meeting? Or can we just decide?
24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could come up with some dates that we could work it. And people who could go to any one of these places and just give them an explanation of what we're doing so that they don't feel like they're not being included.
Bob and then Jeremy?
I want to speak in terms of not going for the November election for a number of reasons. One is I want to echo Walt's concern. This whole process has been fraught with I don't know, public concern, including a lawsuit. It seems to me that we don't have to wait till November. I mean, school gets back in session in mid-August. As long as we have some public input meetings after school is in session, I would feel confident that everybody's had a shot at coming to one of them. So we could certainly start having them any time, as long as we had one or two in the latter part of August. There's been some concern about if this drags on, people lose interest. I'm sure Jeremy will agree with me, but when we actually get to the election season, whenever we vote on this, there will be plenty of public attempts to persuade the public, either to vote for what we're proposing or I imagine not to. I know, I mean, I can't speak for the Democratic Party, but I imagine we will take an aggressive position one way or another, either vote for it or vote against it, and we will be, mailing to people and emailing to people. So I'm not so concerned about the issue of it dragging on. If you look at our agendas and the number of things that we've had to table because we didn't have all the information we needed, the notion of us suddenly never having to table anything again just seems unlikely to me. For instance, I don't think Steve Russell could accommodate that schedule. I don't know if Snell and Wilmer could. We didn't ask him that. They may say, jeepers, the three people that we proposed, one of them's, going to Glacier National Park in June. Sorry, we can't do it. We don't even know that. So that even to find out if it's feasible at all, no matter how many times we meet, is going to take some time. And time would be the one thing that we don't have if we're shooting for November. Thank you.
Jeremy?
So I'm going to propose personally why I think it's in our best interest as a community to move forward with this election cycle. I understand the concern. We need to have those public meetings. We need to be able to get input from the community. But once we have that input and we've done those meetings, it's then up to us to decipher that and then to pick and choose. Keeping in mind also that these are public meetings. These have been notified, and people have come, not in droves or anything like that, but people have come. But these are public meetings also where input can be given and we can receive feedback. And I get the turmoil that has been in the past with this, and I think that moving forward. Now, granted, it's really going to come down to, I believe, in what type of decisions we begin to make. There are certain decisions within the form of government that will require more time than other decisions, i.e., if we did all at large, that is going to require a lot less time than if we did districts. Districting would require a lot more time. I am not absolutely opposed to prolonging this, but I also look at the burdens that come upon the community of when we have to elect or appoint, and we get into that. By not putting it on this election, we complicate the transition of going from one form of a government to another within a general election cycle. So by postponing it, we have elections in our current form of government that are coming to an end and would have to run again for X amount of time or be appointed to X amount of time. That's going to be controversial in and of itself. I mean, so no matter what, I think we're going to be in a bit of controversy, whatever way we go, and time crunch. My proposal would be to strive to do our best to get it on this ballot, but if it comes down to when we do vote and we have a differencing of opinion in whether it's districting or at large, that changes the complete dynamics of these meetings, because we will need more time if this body decides to go with districts. It will be a lot longer process, and I'm not against that. I'm just saying that if we can make it possible and we do our best to shoot for the stars and we manage to do it and get it on this election cycle,
and we can manage to then have elections in 2020 for our new governing body, it would be ideal. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I don't know. It really depends on what we schedule and the time. Would it be a lot of work? Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of work to try to get it on this next election cycle.
Yep, Marcy and then Cricket.
I just have something to say whenever you have a chance.
Your turn.
You've got a chance right now.
Okay. I have been giving this a lot of thought. And I really believe that in order for this committee to do the best job it can do, given the mandate that we have been given, it feels to me like it is not only improbable but almost impossible to do that in the next 2 months. We're taking a process that's been outlined by the law and the state that they've given us a year, and we're attempting to shorten it to 4 months. And I just don't think that is a very responsible act. In addition, it really puts everyone, all the peripheral players in the process, it puts them in a bind as well. It puts them in, having to make this sprint to the finish line, like, all of a sudden. And I will say that when you when you are in I'm not going to say in a hurry, but when you are trying to rush things, move things forward very quickly, if you think it is easier to overlook things that are important, I think it's easier to make a mistake. And it's not just the committee that has those responsibilities. It's the outside counsel that needs to ascertain that we're legit. It's our county council that has to double check it. And so everybody involved gets put in line. And I want to say that I think the registered voters and I think the people that are concerned about this issue are going to come to the polls in large numbers whenever this issue comes onto the ballot. We have a very high voter rate of turnout typically in Grand County, and I think that if the voters understand that this can't happen until, a year and a half from now, I think it'll lose some of its steam. I think it'll go on the back burner, and I think as soon as election time comes around, it will need some renewed life and explanation again. I think people will come out and vote. And so I'm not worried about losing public interest or people not understanding the problem clearly when they go to the polls. I think we saw that. I am worried about the public perceiving that, oh God, okay, let's get their opinion on that in order to move forward. I feel like we need to take a little bit of time with that, and we can do these open houses, collate the information. We can do it in a pinch, but I'm not sure that that's not the way that I would have to proceed. And I agree with Judy. I think we need to go to have these open houses sooner than later, like in the next couple weeks, so that we can include that collated information as we move forward.
Cricket?
Okay, so, thank you. First, I agree with Jeremy. Second of all, as far as open meetings, these are open meetings, plus they're available on YouTube. So even if you can't come, you still can see what's going on by checking YouTube. So that's been going on. As far as only having a year, the reason we only have a year is because there was a lawsuit. We could have already been in the process if that hadn't happened. So that's what's put us in this time crunch, was that we could have already been a lot further along if it hadn't been for that. And as far as the county needs to double check our stuff, they really can't be involved. They just are going to vote whether or not to put it on the ballot. We have to make these decisions because the county, is not a disinterested third party, just like our county attorney is not a disinterested third party. We're supposed to do all this point up till when we're done, and at that point we hand it over to the county attorney, who then advises the county council. So I just really think that I think dragging it out is unfair to the people who are going to run. We're asking you to run for 1 year and incur the time and the expense of running for 1 year, because then we're going to put it on the ballot. I think it's more timely and efficient to get it done for this election so that our county knows that we're kicking off the next election correctly and not, well, this is just going to be in limbo. We're going to put you in limbo because we're going to take another year. So that's my 2 cents.
Bob?
Would you like a motion so we have something to vote yes or no on?
Judy, did you want an opportunity to say something?
I mean, I'd like to say something, but
Sure. I
did want to say the one of the advantages to putting it on 2020 is it's a presidential year. Everybody and their dog will be voting. It's going to
Hopefully
be
not their dog. Hopefully
well,
just registered voters.
only the registered residential dogs. But that will be a very high turnout. And although Marcy's right, we get a high turnout all the time, we'll get an even higher turnout in 2020. I'm not sure what makes you think people will be running for 1-year terms. I figure they'll be running for 2-year terms, which used to be the norm for county councils. And then the last point I want to make is the House isn't on fire here. The voters have said 3 separate times that they like the current form of government. We don't need to be in an awful rush to change it. And when we get to it, you'll see from our interviews with department heads at least, and actually with elected officials as well, most people think that what's happening right now is working okay.
Judy?
Okay, my problem is if we're going to die a natural death in March of next year, and we're not having an election until, so are we able to extend our time? So in March of next year, we're done, whether we've had an election in November of this year or whether it goes to November 20.
Yeah, hopefully we can get, even if we don't.
So we're going to be out of it in November of next year, irregardless of what we do.
Yep.
Or March of next year.
March of next year, no matter what.
No matter what.
As a committee.
And if we don't decide, we default.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Ruth?
It seems like I've asked Christina about that, and I thought that she said the transition plan the study committee is also responsible for, which would be after the optional plan on the ballot. So you'd still be, you're not going to just be all done come March.
Jeremy?
So the
You have a
transitional,
year
the transitional
to
plan
get-
is absolutely part of our due diligence. So we have to not only come up with our change of government, but the transition to that change of government within the year deadline. That is, but once our deadline is met, the law is very clear that we cannot make a decision and we have not done our duties, then the law then kicks in and says you will default to the preferred form of government, which I don't think anybody here is too thrilled about. I know the community's not thrilled about it. That's one of the reasons I feel like they always came out and voted against it, is because in every majority of people was to keep it because they were always afraid of a 3-member commission, and that is the preferred form of government, a 3-member commission at large. So we have to not only get our change of government in, but then the transitioning part of it also.
It all has to be done by November?
No, not by November, but by next March. So
No. That's where I'm thinking you have more time with the transition.
it's a year.
No, Jeremy's, I think, right.
I hope
The
you
committee
guys, because that was not what
loses,
Christina told me.
the committee loses its authority March 21st, 2020.
So we have to have
I
the
really think we need
transition
to
plan done as well.
As well. And that can continue after theoretically, I'm hypothetical, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Bob, but we could come up with a plan of a change of our government, drafting those governing documents, and then present that to the community, all while still working on a transition to to that.
I think we could, but the devil's always in the details.
Yeah,
So if when we come up with the preferred form of government we're going to recommend, I think we also, before we recommend it, ought to have the transition plan lined out, because that'll make a big difference in if we come up with a plan, then we looked at the transition and we go, wait a minute, this doesn't work, maybe we go back to the drawing board.
Walt,
May I speak some more?
and Walt and then Ruth.
Just a couple of things. One is if we're going to put this on an accelerated schedule to where we're going to meet weekly, you're in the middle of a absolute busy time of the year here, and if we start getting 2 or 3 of us that can't make meetings, this is gonna get worse. I would also suggest that why wouldn't it be okay for us to proceed down this road and see where we are close to July 8th and see if the group feels like we're ready to pull the trigger on this and we can go in November, or we're not ready, the public isn't ready, we don't have everything done that we need to have done in order to start the voter process, then we say it's going to be 2020. And I agree with Bob, 2020 is going to be a major election. Nobody is not going to show up to vote that still cares.
It's going to be so much fun.
So anyway.
Okay. I just want to, for clarity, and I'm just raising the question. So the timeline that you all looked at with Christina last week, was all about the optional plan and the deadlines for this November. Had nothing to do, not a word on here about the transitional plan. 2 different things. So I want to be sure that you're clear about that. The March deadline, you have the 1 year, so you have till March 7th. I think she had this one, maybe not. To make your recommendation as to the form of government and to have the optional plan drafted by the outside counsel. But that's separate from the transition plan. You remember the state code says you have till 12/31 of 2021 to be in compliance. And then once you're in compliance, then the officers can get elected. So I just want to be sure that you're clear that your job is not over in March. I'm sorry to say, your job is not over in March of 2020.
Well,
that's my readout.
Jeremy, I just read it differently than that, and what I've had explained to me by our former attorney, it's very clear that you have a year to do the transition, a year to choose the form of government, and then from there, our duties are done. And the reason they put that in the bill is so that nobody drags their feet and takes 10 years to do that. They gave some teeth to it, and that is our duty. But I will reiterate that I like what Walt is saying about we could do this tentatively, and there comes a certain point at a time in a meeting where we say yes or no, that we can get it on the ballot. And I have no problem with the deadline of July 8th to see how close we are to that. And I have no problem with meeting in meetings. I mean, right now it gets me out of a little work, so I'm okay with doing that and progressing forward with that. But if we can't make it happen and it does feel rushed, I think there is no problem with putting on the brakes and doing this smart. It all comes down to what decisions we do that will infect the community. Can we do that effectively and quickly? Possibly. Is it going to take more time? Possibly. But I do like the idea, and I would even propose that if we do make a motion that it's a tentative deadline for July, a hard deadline for July 8th for us to be able to say yes or no, that we can do this or we can't.
Well, I'm not sure July 8th works, because if Christina has to have time to review all this thing.
She said it would.
She was here. She said it would.
She said it would work. July 8th.
Yeah.
She brought us
but
the
we have
timelines.
to give her, do we have to give it to her before July 8th?
No, on July 8th.
Okay, all right.
Or thereabouts.
Answer my question.
We have to make that decision, though, before July 8th.
Well, I'm just saying that
In fact,
we see that
it's
we're
on
not
the
getting
agenda to make
close.
that decision today.
Well, if we don't have an attorney, that's available, if somebody doesn't become available, the one's turned us down, the other one's not good till October, we can't have anything ready for anybody in July. at this point. I would love for us to be able to go to 2020 with the election for the county council people or county commissioner, whatever it is. I would love that if we could do it. I think we can do it. I don't think we have to, I don't think the public will feel rushed if we do a good job. And I would like to try.
Ruth?
I have another concern. So I don't believe the election of officers of the new form of government can happen until 2 years after the people say what the form of government is.
Yep.
So it
They
wouldn't,
can't, no matter what? Oh,
no, it wouldn't, they wouldn't,
So it's going to 22.
2022.
no matter what.
I mean, I'm not the attorney, but this is my understanding, trying to stay in tune.
So if I can jump in. So here's my thoughts. I despise setting deadlines for deadlines. And here's what we're looking at is everyone here at one point or the other said, well, this is going to depend on this other person, which will depend on this other person, which hopefully, I think our intentions are we want to get it done as quick as possible. But I keep hearing that we have to hope that the county attorney will review it in 45 days. And truth be told, if devil's advocate here, if she didn't want to go forward or if she wanted to delay it and we gave her 12 days to do it, and she said, oops, I need 45 days, and it pushed past the deadline, we would have no control of that and would be forced into the next period anyways. We're also depending on someone to draft it. We're also depending on a bunch of other elements. I want us to set a deadline today for something, but I don't know if it is going to be able to get on the election or not. And I think we even, if not for this election, I don't think we wait until the very end of our statutory period to make a decision. I think we can set an in-between date. That's what my big concern is that we're just hoping that all these other elements work out, and just if it works out, then we can get on this year's election.
I think the bottom
Cricket.
line too that we need to remember is what we need from the public is 4 questions.
Sure.
That's it. I mean, and once they give us that, I mean, it's not like it's a long drawn out. This is what we want.
Bob?
Well, I'm just thinking process here. Or in order to make the deadline for July 8th, we would have to be voting on the elements that we are going to recommend before that, because we have to write something up to give to an attorney to draft. So let's assume an attorney says, well, I can do this in 2 weeks for you, which would be extraordinarily fast, considering not proposing to give them any lead time. So let's imagine that's the case. So 2 weeks before July 8th would be June 23rd, something like that. So we would have to have it to our outside attorney by, say, June 23rd. Well, the 21st is a Friday. If they could do it in those 2 next weeks, which we have no assurance of. In order to do that, I don't know if we're envisioning a series of up and down votes on issues like commission versus council, the number, districts versus not districts, elected mayor versus appointed administrator. I mean, are we envisioning we can have all those votes in a 2-hour meeting? I mean, that seems like it would telegraph to the community that we are blasting through this regardless. And we would have to do that roughly, we'll say on a meeting on June 14th. That gives us less than a month, actually, for any process. I'm going to make a motion, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
A motion? It's your motion.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt the proposed schedule to complete our work, if possible, by Thanksgiving.
This year.
Yeah. God help us, yes.
Just checking.
Thanksgiving is on the 21st or the 28th?
Of November, the end of November.
Just trying to remember when Thanksgiving is.
Let me see if my computer tells me. It's 28th.
So that clearly is going for 2020.
So we have a motion that we would adopt the proposed schedule to be completed by November 28th of 2019. Do we have a second? No
Say
second.
that dies.
Okay, returning to discuss.
Yes?
Yes, we can hear you, Marcy. Okay, I'll repeat what I just said. Mr. Greenberg has motioned that we would adopt the proposed schedule to complete our efforts by November 28th, 2019 to give our proposal, or to complete our work. Okay, a second from Ms. Till. All in favor of...
Are we going to discuss? Or?
Yeah.
You want to
Well,
discuss?
I think we've just been.
No, we already did the discussion. We
Okay.
would vote now.
You could discuss more if you have something more to say.
Okay, well,
So you're setting a firm deadline of
I'm just saying that it's crazy to shoot for November. That's really all I'm saying. After that,
it's crazy to shoot for
this November's
this
ballot.
November.
That's
That's a little confusing. If you want to have it in November, then you're saying it's crazy to shoot for November.
no.
No,
I'm saying
no.
it's
I know, but I'm just trying
right,
to clarify.
right.
You need to clarify
No,
what you
I'm
mean.
saying that it's crazy to try and get this on this year's ballot. But we should complete our work expeditiously, for instance, by late fall. That's the intent of the motion.
Marcy, did you want to say something?
Thank you.
No.
Any other discussion on the motion? It's been seconded. So we'll move for a vote. All in favor of adopting a proposed schedule to be completed by November 28th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
3, all opposed? Is that in favor? So
Wait. I guess.
I'm going to repeat it again. So we're going to vote on adopting a proposed schedule to complete our efforts by November 28th, 2019. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the motion passes 4-3.
Now, there's nothing that keeps us from doing it sooner, mind you.
The county members that were opposed are Cricket Green, Jeremy Day, and Judy Carmichael.
You know, I think adopting that schedule doesn't keep us from doing it faster. I'm fine if it works out that way, but I just don't see it.
It's gonna be tough. I mean,
To make that.
yeah, to make that deadline's gonna be tough.
Well,
Steve, when I made the comment before that, I didn't say a deadline. I said, see where we are when we get close to July the 8th. I still think we could do that. If this group felt
Well, you
that
can
we
always
are
reconsider the motion at that
Huh?
point. If we think we're done,
we
we can
can
always
reconsider the motion. I don't think this
Yeah,
is a
that's fair.
done deal, but
So,
But that needs to be like 3 weeks from now.
Mr.
yes,
Day?
that's exactly right.
I would like to open for discussion, our scheduling.
Okay.
What we need to do to meet, to organize town hall meetings. I feel like we need to meet sooner rather than later to pull the trigger on independent counsel, to be able to finalize that. So it would be nice to be able to say, okay, we got some more meetings coming up. So what are schedules looking like for folks?
Well, we have meetings scheduled
Right, we
through
do,
August.
but I think we need to add some more. I know, Bob, I know. But I mean, just because, when's our next meeting right now as what we're scheduled? We're looking at June 14th.
I'd like to have an open house before that.
I will
If that-
agree with
If that would work for somebody. You know, I just think we need some public input. I'm not opposed to us going past the July thing. I'm not one way or the other, but I think we need some public input.
That's July. I've got one.
And I think that can be done. I think public meetings can be done. I think we can do it like an open house all day, Saturday and give them tea and cookies, you know, let's just
So,
do something.
so
you making the
let's
cookies?
let's ask this: can we do that right now today? Can we set some dates for?
It's actually.
It's on our agenda. Okay,
agenda.
so then here's my other question: is then I would like to get on. I mean, we're still discussing this, but maybe we need, instead of an extra meeting, we just need to set a firm deadline on independent counsel for the 14th of June. You know?
What about independent counsel?
Well, we need to vote on
choosing
on
some.
choosing independent counsel for drafting on
Marcy,
the 14th of June.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think we should set the date for open house.
Okay.
Anybody, high school graduation on the 30th?
It is on the 31st, I believe. Is it a Thursday or a Friday? Thursday, a 30th.
30th.
You are correct, Marcy.
So I would say you don't want to do anything on Wednesday, Thursday, or that week. Way too hectic for people ending school. I think you could do something feasibly on Tuesday, the 28th. I think then the next week in the middle of the week and the next week in the middle of the week, I think you're gonna have pretty good luck, getting attendance.
I can be at any meeting if it's during lunch hour.
Mr. Chair, can I call a
Ruth?
point of order?
Point of
So, just that we should take off the table item I, which is
Sure.
setting dates for public open.
So we're going
houses.
to untable the item I, setting dates for public open houses, open discussion for that. Mr. Greenberg?
For the county, at least, public meetings really are required to be in the late afternoon so that people who are working can get there at 4 o'clock or later. I don't know if we want to honor that approach, but I think it's appropriate. I mean, you and I live a couple of blocks up the road. We can get here no matter what's happening for an hour, but other people can't necessarily.
Except Cricket never gets home before 9 o'clock.
Well, that's true.
Okay.
I hear her too.
So we've got
quiet, I
one
can't.
date selected or proposed would be the May 28th. Can we get some other dates?
That's the day after Memorial Day, though.
Yeah,
And
that's,
that's not particularly Memorial Day's the 27th.
29th?
yeah, that week is
29th.
kind of shattered. Monday's a holiday, a national holiday. Thursday is a Grand County holiday, graduation.
Oh, hell.
Well, I mean, we can always.
That's a tough week.
I would say our first meeting could be the 4th of June. That's what I would
That's
propose. The 4th of June.
That's regular county council day.
Oh, boy.
Well, then let's do the 5th of June.
Let's do that.
The 5th of June. So here's the proposal. Which meeting do we want to have first, or what open?
Is this open on the 5th? Do you know?
I can just,
Well, this would. I mean,
it doesn't have to be. here.
doesn't have to be here.
You're talking about 4
It-
different places.
Yeah.
Okay,
It.
okay,
so-
we'll find a place after we
Yeah.
set a date.
So
Okay.
do we want? I mean, then the question is, okay, the 5th. So the first meeting, do we want to do it in Castle Valley? Do we want to do it in Spanish Valley, or do we want to do it here at the Grand Center?
What was that, Marcy?
Sure, Marcy.
I'm actually out of town the first week of June, but I think we could go ahead and have a meeting. If you want to postpone the Spanish Valley meeting until the next week, I would be amenable to kind of organizing that.
Okay.
I'm out of town too, but
Cricket?
Maybe is we just set that we're gonna do it. That's a Wednesday, right? We do it every Wednesday in June. One in the county, one in Spanish Valley, and one in Castle Valley.
So
Jeremy?
I was just curious, why? Like,
Well, I just.
are we just doing 3?
I'm sorry. 3.
I mean, if
we
we did,
talked about 4.
what would be the 4th one, and what would be advantageous for that? Out of curiosity.
Spanish, well, we're trying to get some, first of all, it would be unique. The county's never done anything like that, as far as I know. So we talked about one at Spanish
Spanish
Valley
Valley.
Water and Sewer, one here, one at the Grand Center, and one in Castle Valley.
Yeah, but the one here in the Grand Center is the same.
And that's
They're
fine.
2 blocks apart.
So maybe we could
I
go
think-
for
3.
3.
Yeah.
3.
Just a thought. I was just kind of like, what?
Well, and staying with Wednesday isn't a good idea either, because if you're
Oh,
tied
that's
up
true.
with it, there's a certain amount of people
Oh.
that I deal with that go to church on Wednesday every week. So you cut them out. So we did one on Wednesday and one on Thursday and one on a Tuesday. We could cover people by days. that
Walt?
way.
Agreed.
Oh, you're so good.
So,
So you're saying get that done in 3 days within a
In
week?
June.
No,
No, in June.
3 separate
How
weeks.
about this,
3 weeks.
Jeremy? How about one to be held the week of June 3rd, one the week of June 10th, one the week of June 17th, location depending on availability, Ruth,
Of those three
Well,
locations.
of those
I
three,
think
date and the days, on different days
Yeah.
of those 3 weeks.
I think we know that Marcy, I mean, if we hold it in the evening, the water board will be, the water district will be good. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be available. So Marcy, when are you going to be available for the Spanish Valley one? Because I know you want to be there. That's my neighborhood too. I'd like to be there.
Well, I'm available the second or the third week of June, and I
Okay.
can call a water district to find out when the conference room is open. And then I would be happy in the next 2 weeks to sit down with, whoever wants to work on kind of the format for these open houses, so we have kind of a brief outline, they all kind of look the same.
Cricket, then Walt?
Well, so tentatively, somewhere in either here or the Grand Center the first week, in this Water District the third week, and somewhere in Castle Valley the fourth week.
That sounds
Or the
great.
third week, right?
I like
Wait,
that.
I missed that.
I'm sorry, the first week somewhere in the county, we either here or the Grand Center.
You mean
Okay.
in the city?
City, yeah.
I mean-
But, I'm thinking county buildings, what I'm saying. And then the third week in Spanish Valley, right?
For the second week.
The second week,
Second
the second
week.
week. And then the third week in Casa Valley,
Yeah.
somewhere in Casa Valley.
Okay, and I'm available for the first 2 weeks in June.
I'll
On
be
the third
available.
week,
I'll make sure I
it
am.
depend on the day.
And I'm
Okay.
gone the first week, and my brother's getting married the last week. I've asked him to change the date, but somehow he hasn't.
So,
No,
but if we do,
he
if we
didn't.
do the first, second, and third week, then
We can rotate.
I think majority of us can be at all those.
Ruth, then Walt?
Throw out the idea that it may not be necessary to require a quorum, and maybe Mr.
That's
Greenberg,
right.
you can help me with
Well, I
this.
looked at the law, and there's a
Because you're not-
footnote on that
that's right.
report. If there are 4 of us, it's a meeting.
We can't have 4 there.
Um,
We shouldn't.
No,
with-
no.
No, we can't.
So what's your
Because it is a meeting.
interpretation of that then, so that we're all clear?
Let me find the report
So we probably don't want 4 because we don't want to have to video it and
and take
don't
minutes.
have to video
We don't have
it,
to video. We just have to take minutes.
and that would be
And it-
me,
it would be
and
an
that
official
could be
meeting.
very brief.
And I
What
think
the law
I think it's
says-
okay to have an official meeting.
Yes.
It's fine.
Well,
That's
it
what
depends
I
on how we format it. We envision people sitting at tables and people going around.
But
That'd
the
be
minutes would just
impossible.
be,
We had
open
open
house was held
discussion,
in
yeah.
this format.
and how
I
many
mean,
people
It's fine. yeah.
Okay, Walt,
attended.
Walt, then Jeremy.
It's a given that we're not all gonna make every one of these meetings.
Right.
Right, but
Yeah, I am perfectly fine with, if I miss one, you
Me
guys
too.
or whoever's there.
Me too.
And if it's 3, 4, it doesn't take us all to run a meeting.
No, that's right.
Well,
Jeremy?
I just want to make it. I don't want us to feel like we have to limit it to only 3 people can
Yeah.
be there, because
Right.
the whole point is to get input.
Right.
And if we can all be there, great. If we can't, but we don't want to limit us who we can be there. So if it has to be an official meeting, and we have to have notes and stuff, then that's fine. I don't think we need to limit that.
The
Ruth?
one thing about it being an official meeting, though, is I have to have the 24 hours plus
Right.
notice in order to.
Post.
We have to. We
That's
have
the
to.
only
do that
requirement. So
anyway.
I need to know
Yeah.
if 4
That's
or more will be attending.
that's why.
That's
That's
a
why
good
I think we.
Should we just assume that there's going to be 4 more? And because posting it isn't a
Good.
bad
We
thing,
could do that, yes.
because we
You have to
want people to
advertise them
know.
anyway.
Yeah, let's
we,
just
we
assume-
want to
Before
advertise these, so they're going to
24
have
hours.
more than 24.
Let's just assume, and then, hey, bonus if it's not. No minutes are needed.
I actually think it'd be great if all of us could be at all of them, but that's not realistic.
And we should try.
So let's do this. Let's assign 2 people to each week, and so you can work to setting up the meeting and taking charge essentially on it. So the city meeting, I know probably the easiest one is Marcy and Jeremy probably could take charge on the Spanish Valley.
Yeah.
So we're second week. Marcy, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you and Jeremy will be on the second week to work together to find the place to be and the date to be. Does anyone have connections with Castle Valley?
I'll do Castle.
I do.
Okay,
I have
Bob,
dual citizenship.
Bob and Walt are gonna take charge on the Castle Valley.
It's funny because it's ironic. I
But
just
it's true.
Considering I grew up there, yeah.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
So you got dual citizenship too.
There you go. And that leaves Kurt, myself, and Judy
Seriously?
to
Walt?
handle the city.
Okay.
On the back of a horse, chasing
Oh,
cows.
Yeah.
I was growing up in that.
Cricket, you and Stephen and I are gonna do the cities.
Okay.
so I mean, we could set a tentative deadline. Not tentative. We can set a date for the city right now. We just have to decide whether or not it's going to be here at the Grand Center, right?
Let me get you that. That's the
Okay.
5th.
Yeah, the 5th. So the 5th's the date. We just need to decide.
I mean, that'll be the
I-
best to get
I would
exactly.
I would encourage the Grand Center if it's available, because there's nothing worse and gets people a little more hot-blooded when there's no room.
No parking. There's no parking.
You know, it gets people. I just know, speaking from experience, when everybody's standing room only, they get a little agitated.
The Grand
Um,
Center would be the best if.
This is available June 5th. I don't know about Grand Center.
Walt?
Do you want me to call them right now?
What is the
You guys are gonna
format
check.
of this?
Call
Is
them.
it-
We haven't
Open
Call
house.
them
decided.
right now.
It's an open house. Well, this isn't a great place to
Call
do
the
an
Grand
open
The
house.
Grand
That's where
Center
we're
would be a
calling-
great place
Yeah,
for an open
this
house.
is
We could,
not.
and we could start like at 4 o'clock that way, so that some of the seniors that are accustomed to going there could come early, you know.
So do we want the other 2 dates to avoid Wednesday if we're trying to comply with people's
I think
schedules?
so.
So
Avoid Wednesday.
All right, where's the Grand Center?
they're trying to make sure that folks' schedules will be able to meet. So the city date is going to go on Wednesday, and then we try to have the Castle Valley and the Spanish Valley date be not on Wednesday. It would either have to be Thursday,
About
Tuesday, or Monday.
You're
Let's plan, okay, let's kind of tentatively schedule Spanish Valley for Thursday.
Hi, Brooke. This
We're
is
gonna
Jeremy
find out.
Day. How are you?
We're calling right now to find out, Marcy.
Good. Hey, Brooke. We're checking to see if the Grand Center for a open house for the change of government is going to be available on June 5th in the afternoon, evening.
Okay.
I do want to point out that finding dates for 3 open houses is going to take us a half an hour.
Just need to know
Okay.
So it's lucky we're not tied
if it's
to the
gonna be
November
available
election.
for the June 5th, evening of June 5th.
So once we've got those dates set, that's all we need to really do. We could probably just put
Well,
that
we
on.
need to advertise the darn things.
So our next official meeting is not
We
until.
need to advertise them.
Who's the mayor out there?
That's the flyer.
We can put those in that left-hand box.
That's one way.
When will you already
Who's the mayor out there at Castle Valley now? Is it
Jasmine?
David?
It's Jasmine.
We're in the middle of it.
Do you have a contact for her?
I'm just trying to get answers, but I'll wait for Yordi to call me back.
So we don't have another meeting for the study council officially
All right, thank you.
until next month. Is that correct?
Here, do you mean?
Here.
If I
So-
have enough.
This is why we need
We,
to
this coming Tuesday and then June
So-
4th, Tuesday.
Yordi's gonna call me back this afternoon, but she doesn't think there's anything scheduled, but for sure, Yordi's out of the office, but she will call me back.
And that was for Wednesday, June 5th?
That was for Wednesday, June 5th.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing.
Marcy, did you want to have a committee that has,
Oh, that
I'm
week?
fine. No.
sets up the formula for these meetings?
Well, I would be willing to work on that. Who else wants to work on it?
I'll work on it with you.
Yeah, and I'm happy.
Marcy, do you want me to call the water district and see if their conference room is available right now?
Yeah, I just emailed Dana, but she's on vacation. I
Oh,
think we should shoot Thursday, June 13th. For the water district.
Thursday the 13th?
I can't call them right now.
Okay,
So how
I
about,
will call them right now.
Walt,
Spanish
how about Monday the 17th for Castle Valley?
Groundwater Sewer Services Agent.
The
Yeah.
mayor?
Yeah.
How many call? Where's
Their
my
town hall
irrigation?
open most of the time.
So good to have
And they
these
have
numbers.
it's the library.
What Bob, are you guys going to do it in the library building?
The-
Hi,
the
Maggie, it's
City Hall,
Jeremy
yeah.
Day. How are you? Good. Hey, quick question for you. On June 13th, is your guys' boardroom
we're
available
scared
for a
we
meeting
bored
for the Grand
two of the
County
citizens
Change
to
in
be heard
Government
to
Study
death there.
Committee? It's like going to be an open house kind of meeting for the folks in Spanish Valley to come and give their input. June 13th. Awesome.
Evening. Right.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, 4 o'clock.
That's,
And I can't make the first two, but I can make hours.
I would love it if you'd write me down. What time are we thinking for that, Marcy?
4.
Guys, 4
4.
o'clock?
4.
Start.
Okay.
Okay. Does 4 o'clock work? Okay, 4 o'clock. Then we'll be done by.
7 or
They
8.
want
7.
7.
8.
7.
Yeah, you guys are, remember how many people came to Star Hall?
I know.
Ruth will be with us. She's responsible. Ruth Dillon will be with us. She's responsible. She says. No, that's fine. Yeah, let us know, but we'll be there. We'll start the meeting at 4, and then we'll go from there.
There might be someone in the city office, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're wonderful. Thank you, Maggie.
City of Castle
Oh my God, a technologically sophisticated committee member.
City of Castle
It's town.
Hi, Dana. This is Jeremy Day with the Grand County Study Committee. We were hoping to get the conference room at Spanish at the Water District on June 13th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Maggie put us down tentatively, but we just want to make sure that it's okay with you leaving the keys for us so we can lock up after we're done. If you could give me a call back at 260-2026, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye. You guys could hear my hotel voice.
Excellent.
That's why he gets my voicemail.
Right.
Wait a minute, I wanted a king-size bed.
Oh, Bob, if you only knew.
Whenever you guys want.
But
Anytime
doesn't
after
everybody
hours.
get a free upgrade?
Okay, so we've got.
Oh yeah,
You don't pull it
it's
out?
falling
So
out.
you
It's
can't pull it out?
oh man, I'll tell you. I just shake my head.
no, it's Tuesday.
Spanish Valley, June 13th. It's a Thursday.
And the city,
And they put us down for it, but she'll confirm it.
and the Grand Center, Jeremy's already called about the 5th.
The 5th, the Grand Center's on that. We just need to.
So
Castle
our
Valley.
connections
From
in
Monday to
Castle Valley.
17th.
Castle Valley, the 18th, that you said a Tuesday, that's county council meeting.
Yeah, how about Monday the 17th?
Monday the 17th.
How about, let's shoot for that.
We'll call, right?
And we could put that matter so that everybody could confirm dates probably by
Yeah.
next Friday. That would probably give us ample time. If we
Actually, aren't we confirming it right now?
Yeah, looks like we're.
we're waiting for the
Yeah.
Grand Center to call him back. I didn't
Well-
anticipate that we'd wait for them to call us back.
I'll know this afternoon.
Sure. Okay.
So I will let Ruth know via email this afternoon, and then
we just
Approve it pending no changes or nothing
Yeah.
being available.
But what time were we thinking for that?
4 to 7.
Yeah,
4 to 7, open house?
Just do an
Okay.
open
Well, you
house.
guys
Is that,
are
are all of
optimists.
them going to be evening then?
Bring a
We'll
book.
set them up as, set them up
I
as
know,
an open
right?
house. You know, if there's nobody
a lot
there
of
at
troops.
6
I'll try to
o'clock, you go
rally the
home.
troops for all of it, but
They trust you. You say, you're gonna be there, right, Jeremy? You say yes. You can say, take care of it. So we can yell at you after you've decided. Jeremy's
I
trust
really,
me until
I really
it's
like
done.
Jeremy's
these
gonna vote
well-run
for no
meetings like
government.
this.
right.
How are you holding up, buddy?
Loads of fun. So could we table this matter and just address some other things while we're waiting on a phone call? So just table this matter momentarily and move back to G.
Well, maybe we can just assign people to get the dates.
Nobody in the
If-
city
Okay.
office.
if we put tentative dates and then we just say a pending no
changes.
Tentative dates.
Tentative.
That's good enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
today, we don't have to-
So the tentative dates that we have would be Wednesday, June 5th at the Grand Center from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. That would cover the city. Next tentative date would be Thursday, June 13th, 4 to 7 at the Water District. That would cover Spanish Valley. And then we are between either the 17th, probably we'll just say the 17th, or at 4 to 7 in Castle Valley at the Town Hall. So those would be the dates for the public open house. Pending any changes, do we want to approve those?
I'll make a motion to vote on those tentative dates.
Second.
Walt, Dabney seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, moving to, let's go to, so we've got I covered. Let's jump back to item G, suggestions for newspaper editorial regarding the public engagement process. With those dates, I can draft another brief hello to the public, and I'll get those to you for your approval by Monday of next week. And then you folks can review them in your email, and if there's changes.
We can't approve by email.
Can't approve by
Can't do
email.
that. It has to be open public.
I'd say if you focus on these open houses,
Would you
go.
give me permission to publish a editorial that states that we have meeting dates at the tentative locations pending confirmation? Well, I'll have to wait until I get.
Well, no.
We'll try to get back to you as
Okay.
quick as I can get a response.
I make a motion to allow Stephen to make a editorial to both papers based on our tentative dates for the open house.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Greenberg.
Aye.
Everybody's all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes
Hey,
unanimously.
we're streamlining. Don't tell me we can't get this done. We're streamlining right here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's my red personality, I'm sorry.
So we finished with K?
Now we've got, if we wanted to handle it, we've got F,
That was
J, and then we can continue on. I don't know what we want to do first. Let's do L, because I think F and J are going to be more focused on the remaining.
Oh, goody.
So, moving to item L, adopting May 10th, 2019 report on results from interviews of all current Grand County department heads and elected officials, including all current and a few past County Council members, on their views of the pros and cons of current, past, and potential forms of government for Grand County.
Do we really have to adopt, or can we just make a report?
You had made a request to have it on this agenda for adoption, but I don't think you have to.
I don't think.
I think it's kind of
do-
nice if you do, since it's on there.
All right. Well, then let me put it in on the table then. I'll move the adoption of our report of May 10th, of Judy and my report of May 10th.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Judy. All in favor of adopting?
Well, no, let's have some discussion. Now I want to talk about the report,
Okay, let's talk about the report.
because we gave it to you last meeting, but we didn't, and you just had it at the meeting. We had a great time.
Yeah, we did have a great time.
People were thoughtful, prepared. They had most of them had really clear ideas. And it helped me at least clarify what the issues are. And as we suspect, nobody was in favor of a three-person council or commission, period. Nada, no. Most people thought that 5 would be a decent compromise.
And the county people really appreciated having some kind of an executive that they could go, and they were unanimous on that. They needed, the department heads need a contact person or something, and that was one of the points we got out of that group. The council people were a little different than that.
Yeah, the department heads were concerned. Well, let me put it differently. The department heads liked the idea of a hired administrator as a buffer between them and whatever the elected body was.
But not administrator, that's not part of form of government. I want you all to move away from that language.
Manager.
Thank you.
And they favored an appointed manager, not an elected one. They were universally negative about working under the supervision of an elected official who might make decisions based on politics rather than management strictly, and might change every 4 years.
Walt?
That was what I was going to ask about.
Yeah, they were really clear about that. But as Judy says, the elected officials saw it a little bit differently.
Yeah, the elected officials seemed, it was the elected officials felt differently about it. That's the reason I think it's important that we go to the public and get the public's opinion on this, because I think this is we were very careful how we asked the questions and one thing or another, and these people were very thoughtful. But that's the conflict, is the difference between being elected and being using it and making a living in the county, so.
Nobody, by the way, thought that an elected county manager was a good idea.
No, we had, and no to 3 and no to an elected county manager, no mayors. That was firm across the board.
Walt?
The only thing I was going to say is the perspective of a county council person and the person that's on the ground doing the job would be obvious to me that would be a different.
Well, it was obvious in talking to
different view, because one of them's doing the job and having to respond to a boss. The other one is not seeing that day-to-day detail at all. So having run those kind of things, you see from where you sit.
Yep, perspective is everything. The other thing there was agreement on was the current council salaries were seen as an appropriate level of compensation for part-time members of any governing body.
What was the average salary of the individual that you asked that question to, though?
That's a good question. It was way higher than that.
Yeah, they were all department heads, so they would have been.
Yeah. Ruth, can you give us a ballpark what a department head's making?
Anywhere from probably 65 and up to,
What?
65 probably. I mean, a lot of it is because they've been here years or whatever, and they've been earning, and they're in the exemplary program or whatever. But yeah, and I'm kind of guessing a little bit.
Okay. Sure. There was some hope that the current increased compensation would attract more candidates and allow people who currently can't contemplate serving, or in the past haven't been able to contemplate serving, to actually throw their hats in the ring. There was concern that full-time commissioners would need to be paid very minimum $60,000 a year, and there was, from the people we interviewed who were themselves employers, they said it was really unlikely you get anyone for 60. But they thought you ought to start there.
And personally, I think that there was a leaning towards part-time.
Oh yeah,
than full-time.
I think so too. Now, there was also concern that the current manager's span of control was too big. That 12 people reporting to anybody was just too many.
And I have 14. I did have
14, excuse me.
I did have 15 when I had EMS.
Although they all said it was working okay, interestingly enough, including the elected officials. And department heads also said that the fuzzy definition of the administrator's responsibilities and authority was a problem, which we will be required to solve.
Bob and I both served on the council as part-time people, and we worked. Some weeks we worked 10 hours, and some weeks we worked 70. And when you run for office, you know that what you're doing is public service and that you're gonna have to put out the amount of effort that it takes to do your job. Just like if you were in any other kind of a business, you have to do all the mileage.
Much like what we're trying to do right now.
Right.
Yeah, you got it. There was divided opinion on districts versus at large. Was, I think, a fair way to state it. Several people told us that they would like to be able to vote for everybody, or at least a majority of the members of the governing body. Some people thought that districts were helpful in terms of assuring that everybody doesn't get elected from our block, you know. Well, they didn't say our block, but concentrated in the city. Just on the side, everyone thought that the current new budgeting system so far was working real well, and they'd
Which
like
has
to
its
see
own
that.
advisory board.
They'd like to continue that, regardless of what else happens here. Anything else?
It is what it is. It's two different colors.
Yeah. Now, Judy and I did make an unauthorized commitment to everyone we interviewed that this committee wouldn't screw things up.
Ruth?
And Bob said it to one person and I said it to another, and so we're in the clear, because if it happens to be, you know, I can go like this.
Ruth?
Just a clarifying question for you two. You mentioned that the elected officials felt differently than the department heads about the role of the manager. By elected officials, are you referring to the full-time elected officials or the county council members or both?
Council members for sure. I think also the other elected officials as well.
So the council members don't see the role of the administrator as important, or the
Oh,
manager?
no, they see it as important, but they want the governing body to maintain both legislative and executive authority. Now, that doesn't prohibit a county commission from hiring an administrator.
And that would be an administrator.
But-
That's the part
That would be
that's,
the actual definition.
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
part that's not in state law.
But since the
But-
county
but you can
commission retains executive authority, we could not require in the plan we recommend that they do so.
That was the challenge with commission.
Yeah.
Was that we would be breaking new ground to try to require it, but you really can't require it if they have both authorities. You really can't require it.
You can leave it an option.
You
in the
can,
plan.
but they still can change it 2 weeks afterwards.
Yep.
If that
It
is-
wouldn't be an option because we said so. It'd be
Right,
an option
because
because
it
they
is.
took an action.
Right.
San Juan
Exactly.
County had Rick Bailey for
Sure.
20-something years
Sure.
as the county administrator down there. He works here
Yeah.
now. And
So-
they were a county commission, or a county commission.
Yeah, and I have to say that Gavin was spot on. I mean, the issues is when you boil it all
Yeah.
down, aside from districts versus at large, the issue really is how do you keep the daily business of the county kind of protected from politics with a commission? And how do you get council members more engaged than they typically are with a council? So there's,
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's nothing that's perfect in this life, but there are different flavors to those two decisions.
Well, and I think that's a decision we're gonna end up having to, we're gonna have to wrestle with ourselves, trying to figure out whether or not the lesser of two evils, or this is what you know.
Yeah.
In all honesty, with the workload she has, and she's gonna be gone in March, the county people have got to have somebody to lean on. But,
So-
you know, whether it's mandatory or an option is our choice.
Well, I think if you did a 5-member extended commission, it'd be pretty dang foolish for part-time 5-member extended commission not to have somebody to run that
Well, they
administrative
couldn't do it.
secretarial. Yeah, you'd have to.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But whether or not they try or
Right,
not is
right.
another
Well,
story.
you never, yeah.
So regarding item L, do we want to move, does anyone want to make a motion to adopt these findings?
Can I just say one last word?
There is a motion
There
on
is a
the floor.
motion.
Okay.
Just
And a
one
second.
last word. These interviews, as far as the people we interviewed, 29 of them, put a stake through the heart of a three-person anything. Came out pretty solidly in favor of part-time governing body. There are different flavors from department heads and elected officials.
That included all the sitting council.
Yep, and a couple
Not
of
city, not city.
sitting,
Sitting, thank
and a
you.
couple of former ones as well.
The accent gets in the way.
Yeehaw.
And otherwise, really, it just served to clarify the issues rather well, I thought.
We'd like to, if it's approved, and if everybody approves it, we'd like to be able to mail it out to these people so that they can see what we,
With a little
what we do
thank you
with their
note.
information.
Sure.
That's
And a
coming.
thank you note, from us, from the group.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, any further discussion on item L? We have a motion to approve it.
I just wanted to say thanks to these two, because this is really helpful stuff.
Yeah.
This took a lot of time.
We had a
and-
lot of fun, I hate
We
to
did.
tell you.
Well, the county employees have to feel really good about you guys listening.
Well, I guess the other kind of thing is that there are a bunch of county department heads who are going to retire in the next 3 years.
Yes,
Several.
There are several, there are several.
Several. That's a bunch.
Well, we're looking at 2022 before this goes in, but we're going to lose quite a few in this process.
By then, yeah.
Sure. Okay, now we'll move to vote. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of adopting this?
Aye.
Aye.
Marcy, you still with us? Okay, perfect.
And that was,
thank you.
what was that vote, sir?
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Can we mail this out to these people with a
Yeah.
thank you note?
It's now official.
Yeah. Approving, item M, approving proposed survey postponed from May 10th, 2019.
Make a motion to table this to the next meeting.
This is on the,
Why?
Do you want to open discussion on that?
We
Need a
had a
second.
Do we-
let's have a discussion.
Do we have a second on it?
The second is to table M. I'm sorry.
Yeah, item M is approving proposed,
Right, and you made a motion
Survey.
to table?
I'm gonna make
I'll
a motion
second
to
it.
table. And the
Seconded?
reason- And I'll open it for discussion. The reason I'd like to table that is because we haven't had a competing bid from anybody yet, really, except for Russell, and I'd like to get a hold of Part Brown and reach out to them.
I
you're,
don't-
you're,
wrong
you're
thing.
thinking
Oh,
of
you're on the
N.
wrong-
Oh, I'm thinking of N, sorry, never mind.
M,
I
M.
retract my motion.
I'm like, what did
Okay.
we do wrong?
Okay,
I'm
so
retracting it, I'm ahead.
item M,
I really just want to get going. I'm just skipping stuff. I have an issue with the.
okay.
Let
Item
me
M
I
as in
guess.
Mexico.
Okay, there we
Approving
go.
proposed survey postponed from May 10th. Ms. Carmichael.
You lost me.
You're with us, girl.
M.
We're talking
M.
about the survey now, Marcy.
Our survey, Marcy.
Can I just bring up something about the survey?
You
Okay.
can.
So, my understanding is we were trying to figure out how to get them to the campus, is that correct?
Right.
That was discussion.
This has been.
Is that what we're postponing?
No,
No, it was a mistake.
That was a mistake.
That was a minor error on the part of Jeremy.
I actually had the thought that
Well,
if we mailed the survey
I had the
out,
first draft.
I think that if we set up very specific drop points for them or set a name and a return mailing address, I think because we have such good voter turnout, I think that most of the voters would return that survey. The people who certainly care about the issue would, rather than spending it on postage to get it back.
I have another idea.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is to take it to our 3 public hearings, and hand it out to the crowd when we're done and have them turn it in
Open meeting,
at
open house.
at the open meetings and turn it in at that time and then take a look at where we are at that point.
And then
And
if we
then
need
decide
to.
what to do with it after that.
Bob?
I'm way more comfortable with that. I think that's a great idea. However, there was a snafu with our joint email account, and a memo on the survey I wrote some weeks ago never got distributed. It was on the dais.
M is on your dais.
Is on the dais. So between now and the first open house, I hope you'll at least look at it. Jeremy kindly sent out his can draft suggested questions, which is what I was responding to in the first place. And as I sat down to look at them and to think about alternatives, I was very impressed with how hard it was to come up with questions that didn't move you toward an answer.
That's why we did what worked very hard. on what we
And
did.
I also took very seriously the advice we got from Tooele,
Yes.
which is you don't want to send out something that you can tabulate, because this is not a vote. This is our decision, informed by the public. And particularly since we've had 3 elections on the matter, those are official surveys. I suggested 3 other questions with a kind of a scale on each of them, from not important to very important, and I just would like you to consider that. And the first one is, in thinking about the form of government, please rank each of the following as to their importance based on your experiences. Well, this is for the county employees, as being not at all important, or 1, or 5 very important. The first one is ensuring diversity on the governing body. The second is insulating department heads from elected officials. The third is ensuring stability and continuity in county management. These are more appropriate to employees than to the public. But anyway, thanks.
Well, that's kind of why we done it the way we did it. We're like, what's most important, which is basically what you've done, other than we said number 'em.
Yep.
So we tried to do that, and we tried to write the question so that we did not try to skew the answer at all.
Well,
And we had to reword it 4 or 5 times.
I'm sure.
But
You
we
even
did it.
added that 9.
Yeah, that was Judy's typing. But that's the reason I've always had secretarial help. Thank you.
Well, do
So,
we
we
need a
need to-
motion on this?
Wait, we probably need to amend. Jeremy, do you want to make a motion to make the amendment on the 9?
No,
Wait,
no,
what's the
I'm,
No, he's,
No, it's corrected on this.
Okay,
The one that's in the packet. is
It's
that what
correct?
you all
Yeah,
are
it's
looking at?
corrected.
Yep.
okay.
so can I make a motion that we adopt the proposed survey for use at the
Open houses.
public
Open
input
houses.
meetings, open houses?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jeremy. We have a motion to approve the proposed survey to allow distribution of the open houses meetings. Any other discussion? None? All in favor, please say, raise your hand or say aye.
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 No, that's not an aye.
Passes unanimously.
I just want you all to know that the county attorney and our clerk auditor have their input in here, why it's a little more extended.
Now,
You're just correcting my errors.
And I did.
moving to item N,
Okay.
approving proposed contract award to outside counsel with fee information for at least 3 firms and each under 10,000 for drafting the optional plan ordinance. Mr. Day?
Honest mistake. I had the first draft. So I make a motion to table this pending more results from Par Brown. I think we need to have at least a competing bid. So far it's been I'll be under, and then Snell and Wilmer has a pretty solid bid between this number and this number. Par Brown is familiar with it.
And Steve Russell has an
Steve
hourly
Russell
rate.
has the hourly rate, but if Par Brown, I think another large firm that's familiar with HB 224 and the process, if we can get a bid from them, I think then our next meeting, we could put it as a discussion item.
So we have
So I
a
motion to table this until our
I'll
June
second it.
14th.
June 14th.
Second.
Seconded. We have a motion to table
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Cricket.
We have a motion to table N for outside counsel to June 14th. It's been seconded. All in favor, please? Yes.
Some discussion. It would also be very helpful to know each of these firms or individuals' ability to meet what kind of schedule, how long they think it would take, and when they could actually, how much lead time they would need to get to it. Because that'll inform some of our work.
Any other discussion?
Just the idea that apples to apples are being compared would be what Christina had asked for.
And I'll bug Steve for some kind of not to exceed figure.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be helpful.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote on it. All in favor of tabling this until June 14th, our next meeting date?
Aye.
All in favor, aye. Marcy? Okay, it passes unanimously.
So Jeremy's gonna follow up with Barbara.
Barbara,
and
yes,
you're
sir.
gonna follow up with Steve Russell.
Okay, moving to item O, report on available salary information of county administrators for commissions and councils, county managers, and elected executives with veto power in Utah.
Okay, this is mine. This came up actually in my interview with study committee members Carmichael and Greenberg, and it occurred to me that
Although again, nobody wants an elected manager. Yeah.
right, so
So far.
it occurred to me that it might be useful when you all get down the line and are having to put in your optional plan, you know, whether it's part-time commissioners or council members and whether it's with the manager or not, that this is on average in Utah, but this excludes Summit County because this information has not been reported by them to the transparency website of the state. It used to be called Utah's Right to Know, I believe. The average came to $90,670 per year. And these are 2018 salaries. I actually had a pretty decent jump on my own for 2019. Which does not show here because of our compensation study, which we do every 5 years, or we try to do every 5 years. But anyway, so when you're thinking about full-time commission, part-time commission, et cetera, it's important to know what the sidekick is making too. So there you go.
And again, these are for the administrators. these salaries.
To use the general term, right. And you can tell which form of government they are falling under because there's a column that says so.
Thank you.
There are 2 council managers. You know, these are managers with statute authority. That's the difference between an administrator and a manager. Only council manager forms has that state statute authority, and there are only 2 in Utah, Summit County and Wasatch County, which is a 3rd and a 4th class county, respectively. But there are some full-time commissioners that also have a full-time assistant of sorts, administrator of sorts. It appears that most of them are part-time. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, most are part-time with an administrator, to use that term. There is one that is an elected executive, and that's Cache County. That's a 6-figure, and that's with a part-time council. I hear a grandbaby.
I know,
I was
everybody's
thinking
getting moving
my
on over the
phone or
baby.
what?
I love the baby sound.
So that is just financial compensation, no benefits.
Correct. There is a
Side column.
where we could get benefits. The
Figure
side column is
40%
there.
is the current typical number for government,
What is?
35 to 40%.
Yeah, and I think ours might even be a little bit higher. Some of them are really low here, though. There's one that's San Juan's really low. Some of them are not reported. So, and these are 2018, so this
San
is
Juan just
already
adjusted.
a year old.
I'm guessing that San Juan figure is not accurate.
I'm sure that San Juan figure just increased immensely last week.
I think it's 144.
Huh?
It's 144 if multiplied out.
Well, but
But
they just got a new
it's
guy.
temporary.
They got a new guy, and I'm sure it went way up.
Prices don't usually go down.
Supposed to be nice for Dave, I guess.
Well, we appreciate the report and the information. Any other discussion on this matter? Oh,
Do we have to adopt it?
no, we don't.
No,
No.
Just checking.
just something to refer to when you get closer to when you need it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
It's very helpful.
Good.
I don't really like this
Moving
line
on
idea.
to public hearings, possible action items. There are none. Future considerations. Item P, ideas for monthly progress report for presenting at the May 21st, 2019 County Council meeting. I think this has been essentially superseded with everything that we've done so far. We're trying to move on track. The progress report, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at a packet. There's a document called Typical Powers and Duties of a County Legislative Body.
That is part of Gavin Anderson's.
Oh, was?
That's part of his packet that he gave on the 4 forms.
Huh,
And the
I
reason
must
it's
have
in your
gotten
packet
that
is
bad
because there's an instruction on the survey that I picked up from your draft survey last week that said to include Gavin's write-up. And that was a question I had. Do you want just that first page, or do you want them to understand
And we
the
wanted the
typical
report.
powers of the manager the executive,
We
the
want them to
legislative.
have, us,
Information is power.
we wanted
Give it to
them to
them.
have that whole packet
Sure.
to go with the survey.
And in the announcement of the workshops, we should say there will be a quiz.
So moving back to item P, the progress report, initially we hadn't had any deadlines or any we were rudderless, and now we've kind of got a little bit more formation, and I think with the updates through the newsletter, I think that will address kind of where we're going and how we're progressing, so I don't know if it's necessary to have that progress report.
Question, when you say newsletter, do you mean editorial?
I apologize, editorial.
Okay, so you're saying that it may not be necessary to report to county council anymore?
I am so sorry.
It's never been necessary.
I apologize.
It was a
I apologize.
You're right.
It can, yeah, I'll get another one of those, but yeah, I'm saying that the progress report, yeah. So yes, I will make sure we have a county council progress report. I was mixing that with having
The editorial.
the editorial. So yes, I will have that to be presented at the 21st. I need to draft that, so I'll have to get that to you folks. So my apologies on that. So
But I do think your editorial you need to take off the table, right?
yes.
Which item was that?
It's going to be item
G.
G. It needs to be taken off the table, and I think we've approved previously that on item G, what I will be doing is informing the public of the open meetings that we're going to be having. And I think we already voted on that as
How and why.
where, when, and where, how, high. Yep. And there's two other items that haven't been untabled, and I don't know when we want to jump onto those. Items F and J is what I have that haven't been untabled.
Well, we haven't set, now that we've set the date,
Can add it to the flyer, there's
we
room.
can add to the flyer, so then she'll be able to, after she sends them out, be able to answer to Jay, right?
Correct.
So are you taking J off the table about the flyer? I think it's getting confusing.
Yes.
Marcy,
Let's
Marcy
untable
asked,
item J. Report on compiled list of organizations who have been sent the flyer.
So the only update is I will add the new dates once they're confirmed, so please give me the confirmed dates. And then
Yeah.
I'll send that out to you all, and then you can begin sending it out to your organizations, and I'll send it out to the county employees.
Perfect.
But
And the
but
press.
BCC me on it.
And the
or-
media and press.
Pardon?
And the media and the press.
Right, newspapers, and you want me to send that to the radio? Okay, I'll do that. So let me know, though, who you send it to, because each meeting, I will report back to you who all has gone to.
Just
Mr.
FYI,
Day.
I will send it to the GOP.
yeah, we'll send it to the Democratic list. Just FYI, after the adoption of the flyer last week, subject to formatting, Ruth and I had a back and forth, and I think it looks great now, and there is room to put the open houses on it. And also, the clerk and attorney both looked at it to make sure we weren't making any serious mistakes.
Okay. Any other discussion on item J?
No.
Seeing none, I'd like to untable item F, suggestions for public service announcements.
That was Marcy asked us to postpone that till next time.
She said later today.
So as soon as we have the meeting, we confirm Castle Valley. And then Valley, I think that we put those out in public service announcements on both radio stations.
Great.
And also get it in the calendar of the papers coming up. I still am unclear about the surveys, so we invite people to fill out the surveys at the open houses. Are we gonna determine what kind of participation we had and then decide, do we want to decide registered voters?
That's down the road.
That's down,
Taking the survey, is that a public service announcement you wanna make?
No.
If it turns out that we have no input, then maybe we go that extra step and mail them out.
We're just seeking the information. We're gonna try, what the purpose of it is to try to give people the information and then let them read the regulations and make some kind of a determination, their gut feeling right then, so we'll have an idea.
Yeah, it'll give them some structure to give us their opinion.
Send them all for just a quick look through, but they'll be strictly according to whatever information is approved at this meeting. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Now we'll move to item Q, Open and Public Meetings Act Training, May 23rd, 2019, noon with pizza, Grand Center.
Oh, yeah, well, that's just a reminder, and several of you are already planning to come. If you wanted to come to the budget portion of it, that starts at 10-something, 10:30. I don't think you all need to do that, but.
Bob, some of you may have noticed I got a text during the meeting that was from a citizen who complained that the posted agenda on the web didn't correspond to the agenda we were following. Ruth, did the amended get posted? The last iteration?
My understanding is it was, but.
If they printed it off yesterday, they're in the
Oh,
same boat
I understand that.
I'll look
So
at
they
it
were on
myself right
Jeremy's
now.
Would you take a peek at that just to make sure?
Yeah.
Ruth,
Yes.
thank you. I think you were clear enough in the agenda, Steve, so that she was able to follow it. But
So the concern is whether we had the right agenda on the county web page posted, right?
on the agenda website, on the agenda center,
The
whatever
agenda
it is.
center of the
Yeah.
county
Yeah,
website.
just to reiterate what Bob was saying, I kind of did the same thing. I printed mine out yesterday,
Yeah.
and then there was an updated one that I didn't have. But it's fine. I mean, it was really where the M&N came in. I know that's what I'm going to just leave it there.
Okay.
Well, that's why I was like,
What was wrong
What-
with the question?
It was, so I had the
I
old
know.
one, and I was just like, what do you mean? Am I reading this right?
So there's the draft that's marked draft that I
Right.
send to you
Yeah,
all for your
you're-
input. That's
You're
going
fine,
to
Ruth.
change.
It's me.
And then Bryony sends you the PDF with
Right.
the whole packet. That's
Right.
the done deal one, and that's the one she posts.
That's
Yeah.
what you posted. Okay.
And I'm checking.
But then you sent an email with a revised one.
Well, I did add the open house to it.
Right.
Uh-huh. So that should be the one she posted, but
It's funny, too, is it just says big draft.
They need to take into consideration we're a bunch of amateurs and we need all the help we can get.
excuse me, I think you're professional, sweetie.
Okay. Any other discussion on the Open and Public Meetings Act training?
so
Move
come for noon
adjourned.
for pizza.
Come for noon for pizza. Any items for closed sessions? No. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion seconded by, Bob created the motion, Cricket seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Have fun with the grandbaby.
Bye.
Marcy.
Marcy?
Are you and I working with public on an open house for now?
Yes, call
And
me.
Judy,
And Judy.
So can we talk about dates for Castle Valley?
Yes.
435
Just the three of
I
us.
just tried.
210
Three of us, you know what you're shooting.
1952.
You guys tell me
I'm gonna try to get it done